Everyone, welcome back to the channel. Which is probably going to be a short one, but there's been a lot of discussion over the course of the past week regarding the recent Mario film, right? And they've been quite interesting, there have been a few arguments being made that I think worth addressing, right? We've seen a lot of discussion about, is the Mario film woke? Is it not woke? Um, we've spoken a lot on this channel about overt messaging versus subtle messaging. I'm going to leave it to the audience to sort of decide whether or not Mario has either of those two things, right? Now, what I wanted to speak about was one particular discussion going regarding the story of Mario, right? Obviously, a lot of people who have seen the film have felt the story was disjointed and not very cohesive at all. And that's one of the main criticisms that it's currently getting. And the counter argument to that appears to be that Mario does not have a story or has never had a story. And that that frustrates me, right? I think this is clearly coming from a place of toxic positivity and the need to defend this story no matter what because people feel it somehow aligns with their views, which again, you can decide for yourself whether there's any messaging being shoved into the film. And so their refusal to see the truth, they're so desperate for this film to actually be good because there's so little coming out of Hollywood that they'll just say anything to defend it. But in truth, Mario always had a story. And the story is the hero, Mario, goes on an adventure to save the princess, Peach, and save the kingdom. That is the story. Uh, it doesn't have a Christopher Nolan layer of complexity to it, nor does it need one. Mario always had a story. But one of the things that Hollywood, or the problems that Hollywood is currently running into, is the story, the premise is very simple. But as you've all noted by now, whether it's the first Mario film or this one, it's you've noted that Peach consistently is required to save herself. In the very first film, that's what happened. In the second film, Mario effectively became a stay-at-home dad. It's basically the same route that the Incredibles 2 took, right? Peach leaves Mario at home to take care of the kids, and she goes out to, be her best self and the hero that she always knew she could be. So Mario always had a story, time and time again. That is the very nature and purpose that the character was created for. It's a rendition of the hero's journey. The knight goes out to face these various obstacles to save the damsel and the kingdom. It's there. That is the story, and it's a damn good story, irrespective of what Hollywood wants people to believe. Now, what's interesting is that in the second film now, where they've introduced Rosalina, it's perfectly fine for Rosalina to be rescued by Peach. So the damsel is okay as long as there's a woman rescuing the damsel and not a man. And what we've seen happen now is that Mario has basically become a footnote in his own film. And these things are not coincidental. Obviously, this is the mandate that everyone in Hollywood has now been given, that wherever there's a male protagonist who needs to save a damsel, they must subvert that, and she must now possess the strength that she otherwise would not. I think what the issue Hollywood will continually run into with this approach is that in order for the hero's journey to actually work, The hero must possess certain traits, right? Bravery, stoicism, valor, honor. Yeah, they must possess certain characteristics, and these characteristics are inherently masculine. These are all within the male domain. I know this, we've been conditioned to think that is not the case, but it very much is so. There will always when we apply this narrative in the real world, it would always be the man saving the woman, not never the other way around. This is something that we very well know. It's a necessary part of our biology, and human existence requires it. So the issue Hollywood will continually run into, this roadblock that they will continually run into, is one that they will continually need to apply these very masculine traits to the hero, whoever that may be. And when they do, they will always create an unlikable girl boss that no one really likes, because no man wants or feels sort of any relatability to a woman pretending to be a man. And no woman, frankly, who may be watching the film, will want to or gravitate towards a woman trying to be a man, but a weaker version of a man. Hollywood will always run into that issue, and you may find a few people who are willing to ignore the signs, but it doesn't last. All right, it doesn't last, and it's certainly not memorable. People have forgotten the first Mario film as quickly as they will forget this one. I suspect what will happen is that this film will make less than the last one, and then the next one will make less than this one, and so on and so on. We've seen the trend before, and this is going to be no different. I suspect they will attempt to do the same with the upcoming Zelda film as well, by making Zelda more of a partner, rather than the princess that Link should be rescuing. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be saying, "Oh, but Peach and Zelda have been, these powerful women for years now." Yes, there's no one's arguing that this messaging is new. It's been happening for the past, 10, 20 years. And they've slowly tried to change these characters, these women who should be princesses awaiting to be rescued by their knight, and they try to subvert that narrative, and to say that she's over time she's become this powerful warrior. And of course, the question that everyone then asks, if Peach is as powerful as you claim she is, then why does she need Mario to rescue her at all? The film may as well just have been called Princess Peach, but it isn't, right? And why isn't it just called Peach? And why isn't it just a story about Peach going on her adventure? Because if you're going to sideline Mario here, then Peach should just be the protagonist, and it should just be her story. The issue that they will run into again is that the Peach story just simply is not a compelling one, because it is not a believable one. We will always inherently use our lived experiences to relate to what we are seeing on screen in these stories. And again, the reality is that it will never be the case that there will be a woman saving the world, or braving all these unknowns to defeat the evil King Bowser, or whatever the case may be. It will never be reality. And so despite sidelining Mario, despite this being a Peach movie, it will never just be Peach, because they know that story will never sell. Zelda has her name on on the franchise, and yet interestingly, they've never attempted to just make a Zelda focused video game where she is the protagonist through and through, no Link, just Zelda. Never attempted it, and quite frankly, they never will, because again, the male component, the hero in the story, is why people are interested in these franchises. Link's story is very much like Mario's. Again, there is a story there, and that is the story of the hero saving the damsel. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is not something that we should apologize for. We need to reject this programming from Hollywood to subvert biology, because that is, in fact, what they're attempting to do. And these are things that have very real world implications, right? As I've said on the channel many times, stories influence the culture, and the culture is a reflection of our stories. The more we push this narrative in the stories that we consume, the more people start to believe this version of reality. And so you see that play out in the West, in countries like Korea and Japan, where and where they're really pushing this idea that uh, the gender normative rules that have been responsible for human existence should be subverted. And they're seeing where in Japan, for example, obviously, once you start putting this narrative into play, where okay, all the women are Peach and the men are Mario that are just there for backup, women then start to lose desire for these men, because once the men start to accept that role, that their purpose is not to lead, that their purpose is just there to be a secondary character, then these men become undesirable and women start to look elsewhere. And you see that happening in Japan, where many of the Japanese women are not looking to get involved in relationships with Japanese men. They're more likely to marry out of Japan. Korea and Japan have seen a decline in their population as well. And Japan worse off, because they're on track for total collapse if something isn't done about it. But it isn't simply just a numbers issue. It is a cultural issue, largely permeated with the narrative that we're discussing now. The idea that men are no longer the hero or the leader in our case. Um, and you're now seeing that happen in the West as well, right? The US is slowly heading in the same direction, as is the UK as well. And for the men listening, this is something you need to pay close attention to, because the idea is that if you follow in the trend of Japan and Korea, where you've accepted this role that you are not Mario, or you are Mario, but you're now the help that needs to come in, and Peach is now the leader. If you accept your position there, then that means you have agreed that you are now an undesirable man. And the same thing that is happening in Japan will happen in your country as well. And then immigrants will need to come in to sort of subsidize the shortage of men in the country. So these stories, they do have real world implications, and we need to recognize that in order to address it. Hollywood has been pushing this narrative for some time, but Mario does in fact have a story. That story is the traditional hero's journey, which relies on traditional gender normative rules, and that is that the man is the hero who must brave the unknown and overcome these obstacles to save his kingdom and to save Princess Peach, the woman, the damsel that is in distress. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is a perfectly brilliant story, and something that we desperately need to preserve. And we should, again, we need to reject this ridiculous narrative that Hollywood is pushing if we intend to save our story, but also our community as well.